So right now, Ian Garry is a minus 148 favorite. The comeback on Michael Venom Page is plus 115 on DraftKings. Guys, I like Michael Venom Page here. He's going to be the pick. I'm not going to be betting on this fight, even though I kind of like him at dog money, because simple as it is, Ian Garry has too many paths to really win this fight. So, I wouldn't put my money on it because I just feel like he's got the tools, he's got the youth, he's got UFC experience under his belt, and he definitely has the ability and the style to defeat Michael Venom Page here. But I think I've said this before, I do think that MVP is going to be he's tricky. He has the potential to be a hard test for Garry. And I say that kind of knowing that Garry could finish him in the first round. And I'm not usually someone that's in the position of talking people out of spots. I really got in my way to try not to do that. So it is going to be a bit confusing that I am picking Michael here. But to be honest, I just feel like Garry is just not really all that he's cracked up to be. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I think everyone knows he's probably not going to be some long-standing champion. But a lot of martial artists do give him a lot of credit and say that he's underrated. I'm not a martial artist. To my eye, I don't think he's underrated. I think he's rated. But, he obviously has shown a bit of a weakness with the chin. And someone like MVP who just really, I don't think cares if he wins or loses. I know that sounds weird, but he almost seems more like a showman to me than like a real legit contender. He probably doesn't think he's going to get a UFC championship belt at this point in his career. Maybe a positive aspect of him does believe that, but he certainly does not fight like somebody who is hungry for the belt. He fights like somebody who wants to put on a good show, and I think that's what we're going to see here. I think we're going to see a lot of taunting, a lot of emoting on the part of both of them. And I don't think Garry is going to wrestle him or grapple him. I think if this fight gets out of the first round, I think that Ian Garry could potentially get this to the ground at some point. He does talk a lot about jiu-jitsu, does a lot of jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't really ever use it in any of his fights because he never really goes to the ground, and none of his opponents have really tried or been able to really take him down that I can remember. And I just don't think that Garry's ego is going to allow him to try to fight this fight the way that we almost saw Holland approach the fight, right? Where Holland was outmatched on the feet, decided to push MVP against the cage, but wasn't really able to do much with those exchanges. He did get him in a submission at one point, but MVP got out. I think he could be trickier on the ground than a lot of people think he is. I think he's got a similar timing with his grappling that he actually has with his striking. In that I think he's tricky, and I think he has tricky ways of getting up and avoiding submissions. Now, Garry definitely has the ability to submit him, I think. But, Kevin Holland is a black belt as well and has good jiu-jitsu, wasn't able to. So, I don't think this fight is going to be contested on the ground. A lot of people are saying Garry is going to get him down and sub him. I just don't see it playing out like that. I think if that does happen, it's going to be in a later round. I think that this first round, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot of MVP dancing around him, a lot of Garry going in and out, trying to set up combinations, probably being a bit timid, probably not wanting to really commit to many shots. Maybe throwing some combinations, but, ultimately, I just think that MVP probably has the best chance of beating Garry out of any of his opponents so far. I don't think necessarily he's the highest level skill or competition per se. This fight could prove me wrong, but I just think that MVP has the ability to knock Ian Garry out, and I think his style could potentially present MVP with more opportunities than a Kevin Holland style did, for example. Even though Garry is more technical, I feel like being too technical could be dangerous in this fight. I feel like that he could think that he's going to land a clean combination, go in and really run into something from MVP, because MVP is the only one of Ian Garry's opponents that doesn't really have a very traditional fighting style. Most of his other opponents have been very traditional MMA fighters. And none of them have been grappling specialists or anything like that. He hasn't really fought anybody that uses the style that MVP does. I mean, MVP is almost using like drunken boxing. He's almost literally using like drunken master type like timing on his feet. So I'm curious to see how Ian Garry is going to deal with that. Is he going to try to pierce through and just ignore all of that and go straight at MVP? Is he going to take his time, try to download and find a shot? You know, Ian Garry, I don't think, to my knowledge, really rocked Jeff Neal that much, and I think MVP has way better head movement and way better timing than Jeff Neal does. I think Jeff Neal is kind of there to be hit sometimes, even though I thought Jeff Neal was going to have more success in that fight. I mean, like I said, I could see this fight going 100 different ways, but at dog money, I like MVP, and I just want him to win, and I want him to beat Garry, so he's going to be the pick. Not going to bet on him because, I mean, Garry could easily win this in a number of ways, but I don't feel like picking him here. I want my opinion to be on MVP, so that's going to be it. MVP is going to be the pick. Keep it locked in. More coming later this week.